All right. Hey, good morning, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. This is your morning update on Tropical Storm Nicole as she closes in on the east coast of Florida, set to landfall as a hurricane tonight or early Thursday morning and move across the Sunshine State on Thursday and up the east coast Friday and Saturday. So we got about 72 hours more of Nicole to go, and her impacts are already being felt across the east coast of Florida. Nor'easter conditions have set in. A lot of rain, heavy winds is already causing some beach erosion and issues like that, and the worst of Nicole is yet to come. So we're going to be tracking the latest on Nicole this morning. Mostly going to be talking impacts today, but we'll go ahead and show you the latest with the storm and then get to the impacts both for Florida and up and down the East Coast as I promised you I would yesterday. So latest from National Hurricane Center, 10 a.m. advisory is in. Maximum sustained wind 70 miles an hour, that movement to the west at 12 miles per hour. The two biggest changes are the updates from yesterday, rather, is one, Nicole's intensification was looking pretty good yesterday afternoon, but it has since tapered off since last night. She lost some convection. It looks like the storm never fully formed her eye, and dry air got in there and caused some issues. So she's still a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm. She's still a decently strong storm, but we did not see that continuation of the intensification we were seeing. So that's good news. And the track has kind of settled back to where we thought it would be from the start, which is at landfall somewhere around or just north of West Palm Beach. The Hurricane Center never really moved their cone too much further north, and as a result, it looks like Nicole is going to make that landfall somewhere right around West Palm or just in the north, and just north of Lake Okeechobee. Again, hurricane warnings are in effect all the way up to the Flagler, Volusia County area, and then down to about Hollandale Beach, Florida. So notice again how far the tropical storm warnings go all the way into parts of South Carolina, but the tropical storm warnings to the south only go a few dozen miles, telling us once again Nicole is a massively north weighted storm. This orange circle is the wind field of Nicole, right? And that's the center of Nicole. So if you can imagine how much further north the wind field is, again, remember, we have this combined with a nor'easter. So high pressure sitting over the Carolinas right now is enhancing all those winds on Nicole's north side as her winds rotate around and are causing all that wind field to be all one-sided. So definitely let's remember that this is a very north weighted storm and those impacts will be felt far away from the center. The other thing we have is on the track is also we have the landfall point being about where we thought it was yesterday, and that drive across Florida looks more likely. It looks like she is going to make it out near the Gulf Coast of Florida, the Big Bend region, and then make that turn Thursday evening and then accelerate to the north through Georgia and the Carolinas on Friday. This does have some implications for the Big Bend region where more storm surge is expected, and tropical storm warnings have been issued for much of the west coast of Florida as well, from Appalachia Bay down to about Fort Myers. So definitely some impacts on both sides of the state, and the entire Florida peninsula is going to get a strong tropical storm from this, and some folks are going to get hurricane conditions near the landfall point. So we're going to talk mostly impact today. I'll show you a couple things latest here this morning. Hurricane hunters flying the storm, finding the central pressure a couple clicks higher, around 986, 987. But again, still an expansive wind field to the north of the storm, and we'll have probably more data from them later today. This is the current satellite presentation of Nicole on the True Color zoomed out over here on Tropical Tidbits. It looks about like it did yesterday. The convection has collapsed a little bit on the inside of the storm. Some dry air still got in there last night, and it just never quite fully mixed that out. And with storms that are developing, dry air can really cause some issues. The microwave imagery shows this pretty well. So this was the image earlier yesterday where we had that shrimp look going on, which is typically a sign of an intensifying tropical cyclone, and definitely thought this was about to close off an eye and really maybe go for broke. But this morning, the microwave pass from earlier, from about 2 a.m. this morning, shows that broken eye wall where you have a partial eye wall on the west side, open eye wall to the south and the east, and then, kind of a feature over here on the north side, but not really a full eye wall. Definitely Nicole's core is not as healthy as it could be. This also shows up well in the infrared satellite imagery. Notice how we do have the core of Nicole right here, and there's convection ongoing, but the convection isn't very strong. We're really looking at like these negative 50, negative 55-degree cloud tops. This is really not that impressive for a tropical cyclone. And I think the other thing we're seeing is that the environment is just not as unstable from top to bottom as it would be if, say, this was August or September. Hence why we typically don't see a ton of mid-November hurricanes. That's why climatology tells us there's only been 3 that have ever made landfall landfall in the U.S. in the month of November. Nicole's probably going to be 4, but it's having to overcome a whole lot here. Even with the unusually favorable window it found, it's still just only marginal at best. So Nicole is going to traverse some warmer sea temperatures today. You have the Gulf Stream, which is going to have some deeper warm water, and this water around the vicinity of the northern Bahamas is the warmest water she'll see on the rest of her trek. So we do expect her to continue to slowly intensify, and a hurricane is still likely 75, maybe 80 miles per hour. But the solutions where she got to like Cat 2 or something have come off the table, it looks like. And barring some dramatic last second adjustments, I think that's where we're going to see Nicole wind up, where this tropical core keeps kind of bubbling on and off. But again, that massive wind field to the north really doesn't matter what this is doing down here. She's still going to push a ton of wind and waves and rain ashore to Florida, regardless of what the final number says. So GFS shows the evolution of this pretty well. I'll probably just use this model to show you real quick. She moves across, some deepening occurs. GFS has landfall around 980 millibars, which is a couple clicks lower than she is now. And the GFS has, to its credit, been very consistent with the intensity and the landfall location for many runs now. So good for the GFS. It's going to get probably a brownie point from the storm, handled a complex solution pretty well. GFS shows that drive across Florida sometime Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. She's out by the Big Bend and Appalachia Bay and whatnot, and then she recurves the north Friday or Thursday night into Friday morning, and then cuts up the coast from there. So let's go ahead and talk impacts. Let's go ahead and get into that. Start with Florida. The potential rainfall forecast to come still showing 2 to 4 inches of rain for a large swath of the peninsula, but some folks will be more in that like 4 to 6 inch range. I can see some heavy rain bands setting up across like the southern part of northeast Florida, and then of course north of the landfall point where that more tropical core is. Could definitely see more rainfall than expected here on the map. But I always want to stress that in tropical systems, if you see 3.5 inches at your area, you could get up to double that. It's just how tropical storms interact. They dump a lot of rain in one place, they'll leave another place not as much. Just the way things are. This will lead to pockets of flooding, but a widespread flooding event is not expected because Florida has been pretty dry since Ian. Drainage systems, your ditches, creeks, ponds are all pretty much at or below normal, and your soil moisture is pretty normal or just below normal. So you're going to have plenty of places for the water to go. So we don't anticipate a massive freshwater flooding event. The flooding is likely going to be tied to more coastal flooding in that form of storm surge and water rise at the coast, which is still going to be significant, which we'll get to in a second. But in terms of rainfall flooding, we're not expecting a massive event. Nicole's going to move at a good clip. So the rainfall will be significant, but it's not going to be like the end-all be-all. Not nearly as bad as it could be. GFS wind gust forecast looks like a pretty good call here with the GFS having a good intensity at landfall. I like the GFS forecast a lot more today. You can see the swath of potential upper tropical storm to low hurricane force wind gusts cut all the way across the state from the West Palm area northward to about Tampa Bay or just points northward of that. Wind gusts, here could be 60, 75 miles an hour, maybe 80, 85 at the immediate coastline or coastal counties here. You can see mid-grade tropical storm conditions for northern central Florida, Ocala area, mid to upper 50s, low 60s possible, especially at the coastline as well up in the northeast Florida, with more of like low to mid tropical storm conditions for northern Florida. And you can see that those winds also extend into parts of the panhandle and southern Georgia. As Nicole curves around, the core of the strongest winds will impact you sometime late Thursday, early Friday, where again, those wind gusts in the 40s and 50s. And I want to stress that these will be ongoing for a long time. I mean, they're really going to pick up by tonight. They're going to last all day tomorrow and could last for the part of the day on Friday in this region. So, I mean, this is going to be a long-term persistent event. While these numbers don't pop off the screen or blow your mind, it's going to be pretty consistent. So definitely something to watch out for, and definitely something that's going to cause power outages, tree damage, things like that is all going to be expected as Nicole moves through. European shows about the same thing, wind gust wise. Maybe it's a little bit lower, but overall the same general idea can be expected. It gives you a range of possibilities, but again, this is about what we're going to expect, which is going to be a tropical storm for virtually this entire area of Florida. Storm surge 3 to 5 feet is expected along the east coast of Florida from North Palm Beach all the way to parts of southeast Georgia. Even that 2 to 4 foot water rise into South Carolina. Again, long fetch, long term, punishing onshore winds will pile up water, and that water is going to pile up and pile up. It won't be like you walk outside, the water just rapidly runs up like a typical tropical storm or hurricane, but it will slowly increase and increase and increase as those tides get locked in and can't get out. And notice how the Hurricane Center has actually introduced a 3 to 5 foot water rise for parts of the Steinhatchee area in the Big Bend of Florida. Now that we're confident Nicole is going to come across and offshore, that's going to put you on that right side of the storm, and there could be some local water rises pretty significant in the Big Bend of Florida as well. Tampa Bay gets lucky. The storm's going to cut north of you guys, so the onshore winds will be on the backside, which won't be as strong. So it looks like Tampa Bay is going to get lucky, and then that water rise ends at about Indian Pass, where on the other side of this little outcropping of Florida, you're not expecting a water rise. Anything that would be on this side. So storm surge is still going to be a threat. Coastal flooding going to be a threat. The beaches are going to get absolutely hammered by this, no doubt about it. It's going to be a big time hit on the beaches, no matter where you live, all the way from here, all the way into South Carolina. So please respect that if you're at the coast. And the one threat that's actually come up in the last 24 hours is the threat of tornadoes, because Nicole is going to drive more south and west into Florida. There's going to be more folks on that quadrant that we would expect the potential for tornadoes. The Storm Prediction Center will go back to day one, showing that slight marginal to slight risk across the east coast of Florida with a 2 to 5% chance of seeing a tornado. There will be a couple tornadoes in these onshore rain bands that begin to come ashore tonight and early on Thursday. So I would definitely be respecting that, have multiple ways to get alerts, and expect that that possibility is there, especially along the coast. And then as we go into Thursday, as Nicole is curving around the state and whatnot, you're going to see the potential for tornadoes all the way up into parts of North Carolina. Those early onshore bands begin to shift onshore more out of the southeast from the northeast. You're going to see the potential for tornadoes. Again, these bands move ashore. They're already rotating. They hit land. They slow down. That causes friction. That causes more rotation. And you get these short-lived tornadoes in these tropical systems. Nicole will be no different, and definitely that threat has come up a little bit. Storm Prediction Center showing in that 5% chance. I would expect tornado watches to go up and stay up for a while. So have ways to get alerts, and please be aware that you will see a couple with Nicole as she does move through. All right, quick look at the rest of the East Coast. Nicole moves across here again on Thursday, so we move across. The GFS just switched. Cool. All right. So back to the 6Z run of the GFS. Nicole moves across, moves up into Southeast Georgia Friday morning, where she saw a tropical storm. And this is that strong cold front coming to get her. This cold front is producing snow across the upper Midwest and freezing rain into Canada. So this is a very strong, very winter type low pressure, very sprawling, strong high pressure. So you still have this big pressure gradient between the big hot Arctic high to the north and the cold tropical system to the south. This is a full-on winter front interacting with a tropical storm. So I want to stress that a lot of rain and wind is coming for the entire East Coast. Just again, as the timing, Nicole moves up Friday morning, Friday afternoon, and evening. She's in the mid-Atlantic states. And Saturday morning, she is up in the New England area, causing a mess as she fully wraps up in that front. She'll become an extra tropical or post-tropical storm somewhere in the Carolinas, but don't think that's where Nicole's impacts ends. They will be felt up and down the coast. Weather Prediction Center showing 2 to 4 inches of rain for almost the entire East Coast as she moves up and through, and definitely somewhere around the upper terrain of the Appalachians, and some folks to the north of that could get more rain than currently forecast. And again, the different 2.5, 3 inches of rain in Florida is not the same as 2 or 3 inches of rain in Pennsylvania or in Maine or something like that. So this will be a significant threat of flooding, or at least a noteworthy threat of flooding across the entire eastern seaboard. The only folks that look like they get out of it is maybe right around the coastline, where the rainfall totals may be less because you're not in that front squeezing the rain out of you as much, but definitely still a significant threat. And the wind gust forecast up and down the eastern seaboard shows potential for wind gusts over 40 miles an hour for many states and millions of folks as Nicole moves through. And again, even though she becomes a post-tropical storm somewhere in the Carolinas, you're still going to have this, what is then going to be more of a winter type low pressure on a very strong cold front, and that will create its own winds up and down the East Coast and New England area. Wind gusts of up to 60 miles an hour are possible along the coast of New England and some of the mid-Atlantic states. So please keep that in mind as well. It will be a nasty storm as it screams up and up out of here, and will not be fully out of our hair until sometime later on Saturday. So that's what I got for you guys this morning on your big update on Nicole. We'll have a quick update on the Northeast Florida area here shortly, and we'll be watching every step of the way. You got any questions, let me know. So until then, guys, thanks for watching, and have a good one.